Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Action Channel. So today I think we should focus on Mickey Rourke. Now you may not consider him to be a total action star of the 1980s and 90s that I'm normally focusing on this channel. Now don't let that fool you, cause the man's middle name really should be Action. And here's why. Now what's really interesting about Mickey Rourke is that after he became an actor and he began to live this Hollywood life with all the perks and the ladies and the money and the red carpet and all that stuff, after a while he sort of got a little tired of it and he realized, no, I want to be a professional fighter, a boxer. So I find that very intriguing that once he had everything, he was willing to put everything on the line to go back in the ring. I mean, fellas, come on. Can you imagine if someone like Leonardo DiCaprio or Ben Affleck today decided to say, you know what? I'm gonna give up my Hollywood status of having people kissing my booty 24 hours a day and train hard and get into the ring and potentially having my face smashed in and having my ass kicked just to see what I'm really made of as a man in this world. Now, does that sound like Hollywood to you in 2024? Okay, so what about Mickey Rourke's background though? Now, as a kid and a youngster, he actually did train boxing for many years and had a decent amount of fights, so he knew what he was doing, but still. Now, normally I would say it's the other way around. You saw Arnold using his bodybuilding skills to get him into the movies. Carl Weathers was a football player. And you have seen a ton of other action guys in Hollywood that have used their athletic career in sports to get them into the movies. However, in Mickey Rourke's case, it turned out to be the opposite, which I think is very interesting. Especially because in the 80s, when he became a star in Hollywood, he was not known for having a great physique. He was, in decent, okay shape, but he didn't have any muscles or anything like that. Now, later on, that all changed. In fact, as a child, he gravitated more towards sports instead of acting. So him becoming a professional actor and later on a professional fighter was definitely very unusual and you can even say fascinating in many ways. Now his career in Hollywood more or less started, or at least took off, after he did the 1981 and 83 movie Body Heat and The Rumblefish. They sort of put him on the map. Personally, my favorite Mickey Rourke film in the 80s I think would have to be In the Year of the Dragon from 1985. It wasn't a big hit or anything, but it was really tough and brutal and interesting in many ways. Now the ladies definitely got to know the man after he did the movie 9.5 Weeks, where he played opposite Kim Basinger. I guess you can say the movie was a sexual drama, and at the time it was very controversial and showed a lot of, booty. Now, Mickey Rourke has always been Hollywood's bad boy, and he has never shied away from controversy. These days, it probably would not work, but back in the day, I guess he could get away with it. Throughout the 80s, he worked on different movies, and I think some of them were actually quite good. However, around this time, late 80s, early 90s, most of his movies actually failed at the box office. Even though I loved movies like Johnny Handsome and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, where he played opposite Don Johnson, I still think to this day the movie is hilarious. So that very same year in 1991, Mickey Rourke decided, you know what? I've had enough of this Hollywood nonsense. I need another challenge. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to boxing. Okay, so before the man actually turned pro, at just 12 years of age, Mickey Rourke actually won his very first boxing match. So Mickey Rourke has been involved with the sport for many, many years. And in 1969, at age 17, he was weighing 140 pounds. At the time, he was sparring with former world champion Luis Rodriguez. Now, boxing wasn't all sunshines and rainbows for the young man, and he received a concussion at the Florida Golden Gloves in 1971. The doctors told him to take a year off, so 1 year later he returned and knocked out Ron Robinson in just 18 seconds and John Carver in 39 seconds. And in 1973 he knocked out Sherman Big Train Bergman in just 31 seconds. They must have looked very similar to some of Mike Tyson's fights in the 1980s that also sometimes lasted half a round or less. Mickey Rourke did not hold back, and he was definitely going after his man, and he was gonna get him at any cost. Okay, so how good was the man? Well, at least on an amateur level from 1964 to 1973, he compiled a boxing record of 27 wins, 17 by knockout, and 3 defeats. And during this time, he was a real killer. At one point, he reportedly scored 12 consecutive first-round knockouts, which is freaking impressive. So during his time as an amateur, Rourke had become friendly with pro boxer Tommy Torino. And 18 years later, when he decided to become a professional boxer in 1991, Mickey Rourke called up Torino, who ended up promoting some of Rourke's fights. Okay, so from 1973 to 1991, Mickey Rourke mostly focused on his acting. And in the 1980s, as mentioned, he became a big star, making millions of dollars. So obviously when he got involved with boxing, it certainly wasn't for the money. He earned just $250 for his pro debut. But by the end of the second year, it must have been in 1992, he had already earned over $1 million. He also ended up training and sparring with several world champions, including James Toney, John David Jackson, and Tommy Morrison. Now you guys remember Tommy Morrison from Rocky V, who sadly later on died at a very young age. So as a professional actor, you can definitely fake it and do all the takes in the world. But as a professional fighter, you can't fake it and you have to be sharp all the time. And there's absolutely zero room for a second take. The modern day boxing ring belongs to the world of true gladiators. Alright, so enough cheap talk here. The big question in this video, how good was Mickey Rourke as a professional fighter? Let's take a look. Now, despite being almost 40 years old when turning pro, the man in my mind did extremely well. So over a 3-year period, Mickey Rourke had 8 professional fights. He won 6 of them, 4 of them by knockout, 2 decisions. He had 2 draws, but 0 losses. So altogether, not bad at all. When Mickey Rourke entered the professional stage, he has said that he wished to have 16 professional fights and then 1 fight for the world title. However, in 1994, he retired after 8 bouts and he never got his desired title fight. I'm not sure the exact reason why he decided to retire that year. However, he did have several injuries that required a number of operations to repair his damaged face. Some of the injuries that he received was a split tongue and a compressed cheekbone. Surgeons also had to rebuild his nose with cartilage from his ear. His balance also suffers to this day if he is tired or drinks alcohol. Unfortunately, in later years, most people have focused much more on the man's disfigured face instead of his career as an actor and a professional fighter. So after retiring from boxing on a professional level in 1994, at age 42, Mickey Rourke went back to acting. However, you know how it goes with those boxers. Can they ever really retire? Or is there always room for that one last fight? Well, in Mickey Rourke's case, that turned out to happen exactly 20 years after he had retired. So let's fast forward to 2014. By now, Mickey Rourke was 62 years of age. That's right, on November 28th, Rourke briefly returned to the boxing ring and his opponent was just 29-year-old Elliot Seymour, and the fight took place in Moscow, Russia. So without needing a calculator, and if you do the math correctly, Mickey Rourke was more than twice as old as his opponent. So what happened? Well, Mickey Rourke actually ended up winning. I should mention that it was an exhibition fight, and therefore it's not counted in the men's professional boxing record. He won the fight against Elliot Seymour in the second round. Now, of course, a fight like this is not exactly without controversy and drama. His opponent, Elliot Seymour, later stated that he threw the fight, having been promised payment to take a dive in the second round. Okay, so is that true? Well, honestly, I don't know. Now, in my mind, it could definitely sound like an excuse, since he did not want to admit that he had had his ass kicked by an old man. Okay, so when we sum it all up, we have to acknowledge that Mickey Rourke has had quite an impressive career as a fighter, no doubt. Now let's take a look at the man's very impressive physique that has definitely changed over the years, and of course the action movies that followed his professional boxing career. I should mention that after his Hollywood return, he did a variety of films and interesting parts, but since this is the action channel, let's go for the good stuff. Okay, so in the mid-90s, after he retired as a boxer, he definitely had one thing in mind. Well, technically 2. He wanted to get back in movies, but he also changed his body quite dramatically. By now, he wanted to get big and buff, which was very appropriate for action movies in the 90s. Okay, so let's take a look at the man's action highlight during this time. In 1997, he teamed up with Jean-Claude Van Damme in the movie Double Team, in which he played the main bad guy. They had a pretty good fight scene in the end, but also try to take a look at the man's physique. He had definitely spent a lot of hours at the gym, that's for sure. The following year, he did the action movie Point Blank. Most people don't remember it, but it was a pretty solid little action film, probably very low budget. But then again, take a look at the man's impressive physique. He had come a long way in the past 12 years since he did the movie 9.5 Weeks. He has also worked with Sylvester Stallone twice, in the remake of Get Carter from 2000, and again a decade later in The Expendables. Personally, I always liked the movie Get Carter, even though it didn't go very far at the box office.
You're the bad brother, remember? I know I am.
It had a sort of interesting style to it. The movie took place in Seattle, so a lot of the scenes were very dark and rainy, and it sort of created a good atmosphere around these dark characters. And of course, having these two guys in the same movie, they had to take it outside, and not just once. After that little experience, Mickey Rourke sort of went away, or at least he did some movies that went unnoticed. However, in 2005, you can say he definitely had a comeback with the Robert Rodriguez movie Sin City. And yes, of course, we cannot forget the movie that earned him an Academy Award nomination, the 2008 movie The Wrestler. Now, in this film, he was absolutely huge, and I think he has admitted that he got a little bit of help from some of those pills that looks like M&Ms. If I should choose to describe the man as well as the actor and the fighter with just one word, I guess it would be interesting. Now, being a Hollywood movie star is not always easy. The man has had a lot of ups and downs, and he has been in abusive relationships that have been very public. And in 1998, he considered suicide, but apparently his brother talked him out of it. And just 2 years later, he lost his little brother, so he has also been through a lot of pain and suffering. So with all the highs and the lows, it cannot have been an easy life for him. And today what matters the most to him are his furry little friends. Probably since they would never let him down, since pets are all about love and no drama. Anyway, fellas, I think that Mickey Rourke deserved a little video here on the Action Channel, since he obviously have done a lot of action, both inside the ring as well as on the big screen. So that being said, if you guys like the video, please like and subscribe, and also let me know what action hero you want me to focus on next. See you in the next video. Guys, have a good day.